Hey gang, Jane here. Welcome back to another fun crochet granny square tutorial. Today we're kicking off a new blanket series, Patchwork Medley, and we're starting with a brand new granny square design. This series was inspired by all of you and your requests about how to combine my many granny square designs together into one blanket. So I've selected 6 of my favorites and reworked them so they'll fit together perfectly. And of course, I had to add a brand new square into the lineup, so we'll have a total of 7 squares in this series. Once all the squares are complete, we'll bring them together using my join as you go method to create a cozy and eye-catching blanket, perfect for gifting or snuggling up in yourself. Today we're crocheting the Fusion Granny Square. This design is inspired by different granny square styles, starting with one of my circular centers and then squaring it off using a modified version of the classic granny square. In this case, I use double crochets in sets of 2. It's all about bringing different elements together into one cohesive square. Another key focus in this tutorial is how each round affects the final shape of the square. Sometimes I find that my last few rounds can make a square flare out or lose its shape. You might relate to that. You're probably wondering, how do you fix that? Over time, I've learned that adjusting earlier rounds can help prevent this. So I'll be sharing my tips on how to keep your square balanced as we go. Before we get started, let's go over the supplies for this square. You will be able to find more information on the actual Patchwork Medley blanket over on my blog, but today we're going to focus on the Fusion Square. I'll be using the same 5 colors throughout all 7 squares. The colors for today's Fusion Square are Botany Teal by Bernat Premium, Jade by Red Heart Super Saver, Lettuce by Red Heart with Love, Medium Thyme, that's Red Heart Super Saver again, and Almond, and that's Impeccable from Michaels. I'll be using a 5mm crochet hook, but if you prefer a looser square, a 5.5mm hook works too. Sometimes I crochet tighter and sometimes I crochet looser. However, I would stick with the same crochet hook for the entire blanket because you want the squares to work together. So with the 5mm hook, my square will measure about 8.5 inches. You'll also need a darning needle and a pair of scissors. And I'll also be using US crochet terms for this tutorial. All right, let's jump in and start crocheting our square for today. We start with our beige color, which is Almond in this case, and we create a magic ring. So we hold the yarn across our palm with the cut end facing us, hold it in place with your thumb and your finger, wrap it around the first 2 fingers, crossing over underneath, then wrapping around the 3 fingers. You're holding it in place with these 2 fingers. Insert your hook under the first, over the second, pull through a loop, twist it onto your hook so it's on there nice. Go back and get that yarn over your 3rd finger and pull it through, and that's a chain 1. And we can slip our fingers out, and there's your magic ring. Round 1, we want to work half double crochets. So we want to chain 2 to start with. So we have a chain 1 already in place. And chain 2, and now we want to work 11 half double crochets into this ring. Yarn over your hook, insert into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. There's your half double crochet. You want to do 11 of those. The chain 2 counts as your 12th, and then we will join our ring. Once you have 11 half double crochets plus the chain 2, which will equal 12 total, we want to pull up our ring by pulling on this cut end. So I hold at the base of the last stitch, pull on the cut end to pull my ring together. Then we want to join this. You can join it with a slip stitch, or you can do an invisible join like I like to do. To do the invisible join, I cut my yarn a couple inches, maybe 3 to 4 inches, pull it through. I get the yarn onto the needle. I go not into the chain 2, but I go under that first half double crochet stitch under both loops. Pull it through gently. Come back around and go right back in where you came out of. Pull it down, and what it does is it imitates a stitch over top of that chain 2. So you're not increasing any stitches. You still have 12 stitches. And you have imitated a stitch right over top of the chain 2. At this point, I would darn this end in. I often get asked how I would darn it in. Well, what I do is I come back up through the bottom of the stitch I just created, that imitation, and then go back down in the stitch behind it. And then I darn my end in by just going through the back loops only as far as I can get. It's a very small circle, so I almost go all the way around. And I only go in the one direction because I find that when you do the next round, you're working over top of it. So that works really well. I'm also going to darn in this end for the center, so I'm just going to pull that a little more snug. And then I go in and around those stitches, and I probably go around 2 or 3 times. And if you want to, you can turn around and go in the other direction. But I do find with these nice solid stitches, like the half double crochet stitches that we worked, if I go around 2 or 3 times, it's in there. It's in there nice and snug. And I've actually proven that to myself because I've tried to rip stuff out and it won't come out. Not without a lot of effort. Once I have that in around 2 or 3 times, I'll snip that end off and I'll snip what's left of this end off. And I'm ready for round 2. So let's go in and take a look at a square that I've done. Completely different colors. I love making this one in all sorts of different colors. We've done our center right here. Now the next few rounds are going to be just these simple single crochet chain, different chains until we get to the square. So this is round 1. Round 2, 3, and 4 are very similar, a little bit different, and we'll walk you through those. But that's what we're doing. We're just doing the center circle. Then on round 5, we're going to do the squaring. Let's go ahead and do round 2. Round 2 is going to be using this nice dark green. I think it's called medium thyme. You're going to start with a standing single crochet. I like to do everything with standing stitches. You could also chain 1 and then work a single crochet in the same stitch. But a standing single crochet, you wrap your yarn around your hook. You go into any one of the stitches and go under the cut end at the back to hold it in place. Complete your single crochet, and then we do a chain 1, and I'm going to be working my ends in as I go. I have full tutorials on how to work these ends in, so I won't go over that part as we do this. I have a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and that's your repeat all the way around. So you're going to end up with 12 single crochets and 12 chain 1 spaces when we get back to here, and we'll join our round. So we have returned back to the beginning. We have 12 single crochets and 12 chain 1 spaces. At this point, I do slip stitches. When I end with a chain stitch, I always just do a slip stitch. I find it works just as well. So you go into that first single crochet, pull your yarn through and through the loop on the hook. You've done a slip stitch join. We're going to cut our yarn about 3 to 4 inches again, pull it through, and then we're going to work our end in. The way I work the end in is the same as last time. I go down into the next stitch and back up in the stitch I just created, and then I work into the back loop. So that little loop that I start with secures it like a knot without creating the bulk of a knot. And then I just go into the back loops only for about half the circle. At this point, it's a few inches. And then I cut it because it will get worked in when I'm working the next row. We are done round 2 and we're ready for the next round. Round 3, we're working with our lettuce color this time. Again, we're going to join with a standing single crochet in any one of the chain spaces. So not into the stitch, but into the chain space in between them. Yarn over your hook and insert into the chain space. Make sure that you're working under the cut end. Pull up a loop and complete your first single crochet. Now we're going to chain 2. And again, working my yarn in as I go. Then single crochet in the next chain space. So only working in chain spaces. Chain 2. And that's your repeat. You're going to do that all the way around until you get back to here where we'll join the round. You might recognize this center from one of my other squares, Mystic Harmony. It's just the first 3 rounds of it. And I really like that it's circular and I can get a lot of color into this little space. So continue working single crochet in the chain space and chain 2 all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end. This one's a pretty simple round as well, and we'll finish off this round together. We've completed our round. We have 12 single crochets and 12 chain 2 spaces now. Ending with this chain 2, I'm going to slip stitch in my first single crochet, so pulling the yarn through the stitch and the loop on the hook, and then we're going to cut our yarn and darn that in the same way that we do our other ones, pulling it through, putting it on our needle, going down into the next stitch and up in the one behind, and then through the back loops only, just for a couple inches. Then I'm going to snip that off, and we're ready for our next round. For round 4, I'm going to be using this Jade color. It's called Jade, but it's like a turquoise color. I'm going to be starting my round with a standing single crochet in any one of these chain 2 spaces. So yarn around the hook, go under the cut end, and complete your first single crochet. And then I want to work a second single crochet in that same chain 2 space. Chain 1. 2 single crochet in the next chain 2 space. Chain 1. And that's your repeat. 2 single crochet, chain 1. So the single crochets are worked into the chain 2 spaces. You're not working into any of the actual stitches. You're going to do that all the way around until you get back to here, at which point we'll join our round. Now we've worked our way all the way around. We have 24 single crochets and 12 chain 1 spaces. We end with a chain 1, and then we slip stitch in the first single crochet, and we cut our yarn. Work your end in the same way that we've been doing it all along. And that finishes round number 4. Round number 5, we're going to be squaring. So taking another look at our finished square, we've now done this circular center part right here. And now we're going to work on our squaring. So round number 5, right here. Round number 5, I'm going to be using this nice blue color. It's called Botany Teal, but it's a nice mid blue color. This is going to be our squaring round. So I'm going to start with either a chain 3 or a standing double crochet. I like to do the standing stitches if I can. So if you don't do standing stitches, you'll start with a chain 3 in any one of the chain 1 spaces. I'm going to do a standing double crochet. So I hold the yarn at the back, wrap the yarn around the hook twice, go into any one of these chain 1 spaces, but do not go under the cut. Leave the cut hanging to the side. You can hold it in place with your finger. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Don't let it go too far. You got to keep it in place there. 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's your standing double crochet in place of a chain 3. Now I want to work a second double crochet in this same chain space because we're working the first part of our corner, under the cut and the working yarn, into the chain space, but not under the cut end. Pull up a loop and pull through the first 2 loops. Then I would bring the cut end up and go through the next 2 loops. So now it's brought up to the height of the stitch right here. That's where I want it. Chain 1. In the next chain space, 2 half double crochet. Still working my yarn in as I go. At this point, I just bring it up and do the chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, and we've now reached the opposite corner. I think I can work this in a little bit more. A double crochet in the next chain space, and another one, chain 3, and 2 more double crochet in that same chain space. Let's take a look at what we've done. We've just formed our corner, which is 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochet in the same chain space. Let's go back to the beginning. This is the first half of a corner, which we will complete over here. 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, and the corner. Again, you're only working in the chain spaces. We're going to do this edge 2 more times and then another one to here. Let me walk you through another one. Chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, 2 double crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, and 2 double crochet in that same chain space, all for the corner. So there is your second edge worked up here. We're going to do the same thing across here, and then we're going to come back down this edge, but this corner will be a little different because we already have 2 stitches in it. I will work this, and you can watch me and work along with me. Remember always to put the chain spaces between the groups. It's the only round that we're going to be doing that on. Subsequent rounds, there won't be chain spaces. You'll see that as we do it. Now after we've worked this second half double crochet set, there's 2 of them in there, chain 1, we're back to the chain space we joined in. We work 2 double crochet into that same chain space, chain 3, and now we'll do a slip stitch in the top of our standing double crochet, or if you started with a chain 3, you'll be slip stitching into that 3rd chain. And that completes your round. We'll cut our yarn, pull it through, and work it in the same way that we've done with all the other ones. I take it in about one edge and then the half of the next edge and then clip it. There you go. You have your squaring round, and from here on in, it'll all be squared edges. Taking a look at the one that we've already done, we just did this squared part here. You can see you fit right in there. And from here on in, we're just going to be doing these squared rounds to mimic this squared edge. We start this round with the beige, which is called Almond, and we work a standing double crochet into any one of the corner chain 3 spaces. Any one of them will work, or you can do a chain 3 instead of the standing double crochet. Work a second double crochet into the same corner space. Into the next space, you want to work 2 double crochet. No chain in between them. We're not doing any chain spaces anymore. So 2 double crochet in the next chain space. Trying to work my yarn in as I go here. 2 double crochet in the next chain space. That's the repeat across the edge. 2 double crochet in each of the chain spaces, no chains in between. Till you get to the opposite corner, this chain 3 space here, you want to work 2 double crochet, chain 3, 2 double crochet. Let's take a look. We started with 2 double crochet in our first chain 3 space, went directly to 2 double crochet in the next chain space, and continued that all the way across till the next corner where we did 2 double crochet, chain 3, 2 double crochet. In this round, I do not do chain spaces in between. If you find you're a really tight crocheter and it's really pulling in, you can add the chain spaces in. What I found with this design is I liked the look of it without the chain spaces. Let's take a look of a finished one. In this finished one, you can see I will be working the subsequent rounds into the gaps in between, but no chain spaces. I did find when I personally put chain spaces in between, because some patterns they call for them, I have another granny square that I have the chain spaces in, I found it actually made the square a little too loose for me. So I left them out, and I liked how nice and tidy and it pulled the pieces in. It makes it a little more of a solid stitch than an open work. So you can see here that I'm working into the gaps, not the chain spaces. In this squared round, I did put a chain in between because I wanted to create the space that around the circle so it didn't bunch my square into the wrong shape. But as we move forward, I left the chain spaces out until we get up to here, which I'll show you, and it gives it a nice tidy look. But the reason I do that is so the last round does not flare out. I'm going to show you after each round how it will pull in a bit, almost like it's creating a little bowl. This is how I make the rounds work together to get the final look I want. So stick with me on this one. Let's continue with the one we're working on. 2 double crochet in the next chain space. 2 double crochet in the next chain space until we reach the next corner. In the corner, 2 double crochet, chain 3, and 2 double crochet again in the same corner. We're going to work this way across this edge, do a corner, and across this edge, and then we'll finish up here. And I'll work this whole round along with you. When I've worked my way across this last edge and I get to this chain space that I joined in, I work 2 double crochet, chain 3, and a slip stitch join in the top of the standing double crochet or the third chain of your chain 3 if that's what you worked. I will clip off my yarn, pull it through, and darn it in the same way I do the other ones. Now let's take a look at this one, this round that I did not put chain spaces in. You can kind of see it does curl up a little. See if I can get this on camera. The edges are just kind of creating a little bowl shape there. That's okay. And when I get to the final round, I do put chain spaces back in, and it seems to just even everything out. I do find the trick with crochet, every round is not going to look flat necessarily. It's how all the rounds work together as a whole. When I put chain spaces in between here, personally, the last part of the square, it just seemed to flare right out. And I thought, well, how can I bring it in other than working on that last round to bring it in? If you bring it in as you work, and then in that last round, I give it space, the whole square lies flat. That is the beauty of flexible fabric and crochet with all its beautiful spaces. It just seems to work. It doesn't have to do it every single round, but in the end, it has to work. So sometimes it means a little tighter here, so you get a little more even later on. Round number 7, we're going to be going back to our lettuce color, this nice bright green, standing double crochet in any one of the corners or chain 3, both will work. And this is how we started in the previous round. And we work a second double crochet into that same corner. These next 3 rounds, this one, the round before, this round 7, and round 8 are all identical in the sense that they're just 2 double crochets all the way around, and your corners are 2 double crochet chain 3s. We want to work this round into this gap. So there is no chain stitch here, but you're still going to work into the gap in between these 2 sets of double crochets. If you put a chain 1 there, then you'll work into the chain 1. So 2 double crochet in that gap. And again, no chain 1. Go straight into the next 2 double crochet set into the next gap. See how we're working there right into these spaces in between the sets. 2 double crochet in the next one. And continue to do that until you reach the corner. When we get to the corner, 2 double crochet in the chain 3 space, chain 3, and 2 double crochet again, same chain 3 space. That creates our corner, and we have 1 edge done. That's what we're going to do all the way around, just like the previous round, but we're working into these gaps. 2 double crochet in the next gap, no chain 1 space, 2 double crochet in the next space gap, continuing along like that until we get to the next corner. At the corner, we work 2 double crochets, chain 3, and 2 double crochet. You'll continue just like that for the next edge and corner and the next edge, where we'll meet back here in the corner to finish off this round. You're going to have, in between the corner sets, 4 sets of 2 double crochets, and then you have the corners. I will go ahead and finish this round. You can work along with me, or you can just meet me at the end. When you have worked your way all the way around, you've come back to the chain 3 space we joined in, 2 double crochet in that same chain 3 space, chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch in our standing double crochet, that first stitch, or the third chain of your chain 3. Cut your yarn, pull it through, and then go ahead and darn it in the same way we always have. Let's just take a look here while I have it in my hand. See how these are curling up? That might make you a little scared that maybe it's too tight, but that's what it does. I've worked it both ways, and I do prefer the way the end square looks, so don't worry about these curling up just a little. They will calm down when you get to the final round. Round 8, we're going to be back to using our Jade, this nice turquoise color, and it's exactly the same as the round before. Double crochet or chain 3 in any one of your corners, and another double crochet. Moving to the next space between your double crochet sets right in here, I call it the gap. You work a 2 double crochet, just like we did on the round before. Continue across, working 2 double crochet in each one of the gaps till you get to the next corner. Now here's the next corner, and what we've done is started in this corner. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of 2 double crochets. In the corner, same as before, 2 double crochet, chain 3, and 2 double crochet. So these rounds are all just like the ones before them. There's your corner, and there's your edge. Just like the one before, no chain spaces on this one either. Continue around the same, working your sets of double crochets and then into your corners until you get back to this spot where we'll finish off this round. I'm going to let you do this one on your own because it's exactly the same as the last one that we did. So I'm going to jump ahead to the end of the round. Here we've worked our way all the way around, and we're back to this place where we joined. 2 double crochet in that same chain 3 space, chain 3, and a slip stitch in our first stitch, and cut your yarn. Taking another look at this, I'm just going to lie her down and you can see what yours looks like compared to mine. Now we're getting that kind of bowl look, right? See how it's curling up? And I can push it down, but the next 2 rounds are going to solve this and make the square lie beautifully. Let's pull in this other one that we have. This square is not blocked, so this is what happens when you do the last round. It evens everything out, and it just falls into place. You wouldn't want to go any further like this though, because with each subsequent round, it will continue to pull in more. So the way this works is every so many rounds, when you do tight ones, you'll need a loose one to compensate. And we have arrived at this point. The chain spaces are going to be needed on the last round just to even everything out. But I'm going to show you, we have 2 rounds left to do, and this is what's going to even out this square. These last 2 rounds will work together to create the space needed for this square to lie flat. The last round is the one that unifies the square with the other squares in the patchwork medley blanket, allowing them all to work together for the joining process of the blanket. Round number 9 and round number 10 are going to use this nice Botany Teal, it's called. Round number 9 is going to be half double crochets. So what I want to do is start with a chain 2. I don't do a standing half double crochet. You could use the standing double crochet and adapt it, but I prefer to just start with a chain 2 for the half double crochet. So I just insert and slip stitch and then do chain 2. Now I will work a second half double crochet into that same corner. So same concept, just half double crochets, and I'm going to put chain 1s in between. Chain 1, 2 half double crochet in the next gap. And chain 1. So 2 half double crochet in the next gap and a chain 1. Continue that way across the entire edge, and then we'll take a look at this. This is my last gap here till I reach the corner, chain 1, and in the corner we'll do 2 half double crochet, chain 3, and 2 half double crochet. So same concept, just with half double crochets. Let's take a look at what we've done. So now this round is going to be shorter than the other rounds because I'm going to do the next round in the same color, so it'll give the same depth, because the next round's all going to be single crochet, chain 1s. Here you can see I've put the chain spaces back in between, and it has kind of given it some extra space. Next edge is going to be exactly the same way, so let's walk through that. Chain 1, half double crochet in the next gap, and another one. So 2 half double crochets, chain 1, 2 half double crochets in the next gap, chain 1. We continue across to the next corner. Then when we get to the next corner, we do 2 half double crochet, chain 3, and 2 half double crochet. What you end up with, when you don't count the corners, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of 2 half double crochets, and then each of the corners has 2 half double crochet, chain 3, 2 half double crochet. This is what you're working on. Just taking a look so far, you can already see that it's lying a little more flat. So what this did is just kept this nice and snug, and then at the outside edge, we start to add more space in. Continue along this edge and then into the corner, and then down this edge, and I'll meet you back here to finish off this round. When you get back to the corner, we want to work 2 half double crochets, chain 3, slip stitch in that second chain of your beginning chain 2. Now we want to use this same color for the next round, so we are not cutting it off. And on to round number 10, our final round. Now we want to slip stitch into this next stitch because that's where we're going to start. So slip stitch into that second half double crochet of the previous round, chain 1, and single crochet in the same stitch. Chain 1. You're going to skip over the chain space and you're going to single crochet in the next half double crochet, chain 1, and single crochet then again in the next stitch. Chain 1. That's what we're going to do. Only single crocheting in the stitches, chain 1s in between every single crochet, and you're going to skip over these chain spaces from the previous round. Now before we go any further, I just want to explain what I'm doing here. So you may be wondering why I'm skipping the chain spaces after I went to the trouble of putting them in on the last round, but they are needed to create the space for this round with all its chain 1 spaces. The alternative to working only into the stitches and skipping the chain spaces, as I did here, is to work into the chain spaces and only one of the stitches, skipping the other stitch in the set of 2. This also works. Gives a little bit of a different look, but it works. In this case though, I will be working just the stitches. The round we're working on now is going to have a lot of stitches and may look a little bunched, but when it gets joined to the other squares using the Jago method, it fills in the spaces nicely. Each of the squares in this series are designed or redesigned in the case of the next 6 in this series so that they all work out to the same finished size, which will be 8.5 inches. And this final round has the same number of chain spaces on every square so that they can join perfectly. So it's up to you on this round whether you work into the chain spaces or into the stitches, but you're always going to be skipping something so that it works out evenly. Just make sure you end up with the right number of single crochets and the right number of chain spaces on each edge. Let's continue to do that. Single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1. Skipping over this chain space, you're going to go into this next stitch and single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and chain 1. Continue to do that, skipping over these chain spaces and only working in the stitches until you get to the other corner. You're going to end with a chain 1, and you've worked in this last stitch with a single crochet. Now we're at the corner, chain 3. You want to work single crochet, chain 2 this time, and single crochet. Let's take a look at our first edge. We started by slip stitching into the second stitch and then worked single crochet chain 1s all the way across into every single stitch, not working into the chain spaces. What we have right now is 15 single crochets, and we also have 15 chain spaces because we started after the corner here. We'll be creating that 16th one at the end of the round. Let's keep going. Chain 1, skip the first stitch. This is the only place where we skip a stitch, is we're skipping the first stitch of each edge and working into the second stitch. It's the only place that we're going to skip a stitch. Chain 1, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1. Continue to work that way all the way across till you reach the other corner. Now we've reached the opposite corner, and you want to work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. What you end up with on each edge is 15 single crochets, 16 chain 1 spaces, and then you have your corners. So that doesn't count the corners. The corners are single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. You're going to continue to do that across this next edge. Then you work into the corner and up the next edge and work into the corner. I'll meet you back here to finish off the round and the square. Remember when we start to skip that first stitch and only that first stitch, working into the second stitch. Now we're back to this first corner, and because we didn't join in it, because we're working the same color of yarn, our first stitch is over here. So we need to work this corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 1. Now we can end our round by slip stitching in this first single crochet. And that completes the round and the square. Now you can cut off your yarn 3 to 4 inches. We can darn that in. Now let's take a look at our square now that it's finished. See how it lies nicely? You'll notice there's no more curving to it. Doesn't look like a bucket anymore. That's what these last 2 rounds have done, is they've given it space and it can now lay flat, and there's no problem with these rounds at all. This last round is the one that matches all the other squares in this blanket, so it all has to be single crochet, chain 1 and the same number. So while I was working through some of these squares, I had to make some adjustments. This particular pattern I made specifically for this blanket. It's how it all started. In the other squares, I had to make some adjustments so that they lay flat and I could still get the exact same number of chain spaces so every square could join up. And there you have the fusion square. And this is the first square for your patchwork medley blanket. It's a fun one to add a lot of color into your piece, and I have used some really poppin' colors with this design and made a bunch of them to make what I call my Mardi Gras throw. It's just a fun one to play around with. So enjoy the square, and I'll see you next time with the next square of our patchwork blanket medley series. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my upcoming tutorials. Happy crocheting, and I'll see you soon.